There's the Dover Thrift Edition of The Tempest. I don't know if I showed you that. I might have, I don't think. And here's Richard III, although we never performed the whole play. I don't have a copy of King Lear, but we did perform the whole play. It is major. Some people feel that it is Shakespeare's greatest play. Not Hamlet, but King Lear. I have to say I prefer King Lear. Maybe I don't understand Hamlet as well as I should, but King Lear is a very powerful play. It's a tragedy. And one of the reasons I think it is so well received is because it deals with inheritance. And it's almost a lucky family that is able to make it through their inheritance when their parents' wealth is passed on without tragedy. It struck my family. We didn't think it would, but it did. Right across the hill at the moment, it is striking a family when, you know, children who normally get along fine, they don't. And it deals with that. It is so common. And that's what happens here. King Lear is a foolish old king. And he decides that he wants to retire. He wants to live it up. And he decides that he's going to divide his property up among his three daughters. Cordelia, the youngest, Regan and Goneril. I think Regan is the oldest, but I'm not sure. I get these two mixed up all the time. He's going to divide it up. And so in the opening scene, he calls everybody into his presence and makes a speech. And he asks one of these two girls, "How much do you love me?" Well, they know what's coming, and so they say, "Oh, Father, there was never a daughter that loved you more than I do. The sun rises and sets on you," and on they go. Well, Cordelia, the youngest, is so grossed out because she knows what her older sisters are like. They're real rips. They want money. They don't particularly love the father. And she turns to the audience and in an aside, you call that an aside, and says as much, like, oh. And then Lear loves that, and so he asks the next to the oldest, let's say it's Goneril, I get them mixed up, "How much do you love me?" And she says, "Well, if you take everything that my sister said and double it, you don't have half of my love." And on she goes and pours it on and pours it on. And Lear loves it. He's foolish. He loves the flattery. And he then, for each of them, he divides up. He says, all of these lands with castles and forests and fields, you get this and you get this. Again, Cordelia turns to the audience and says basically, "Oh, what a rip." Then King Lear says to his youngest, "And you, my favorite, what can you add to what your sisters have said?" And Cordelia says, "Nothing." The word "nothing." And King Lear says, "Speak again. What was that?" And he says, "Nothing will come of nothing." If you've got nothing to say, you're going to get nothing. And Cordelia then goes on to say, "I love you as a daughter should love a father. Apparently my two sisters will never marry, or apparently they don't love their husbands. I hope someday to love my husband. They have given all their love to you." It's a reasonable answer. Cordelia cannot flatter, and it is her fatal flaw. In a way, you could argue it's all her fault. Why didn't she just talk like her sisters? But she couldn't do that. Well, King Lear is too foolish to see that she is the one good daughter he has. He writes her out of the will. What he was going to give her, he divides up and gives to these two girls, gives her a few days to get out of England, and a king of France still takes her. But Lear even advises, "I don't think you should take her. She has nothing." But he sees that she's good. And off Cordelia goes to France with her husband, the king. Well, there is a subplot that involves these two brothers, Edgar and Edmund. Edgar is legitimate, Edmund is not. He's a bastard. And and the same sort of thing is going up with their father. Edgar is a good son to his father. Edmund is not. One of my favorite speeches in it, though, is where Edmund explains about him being a bastard, and he feels that that's the way to be, that because a bastard is conceived not in the safety and boringness of marriage, but out of excitement and adventure. And at the end of his speech, he says, "The gods stand up for bastards." But he's bad. I mean, he witnesses his own father having his eyes gouged out, blinded, and then he goes through lead for the rest of the play by his younger son, who has to go into disguise. Again, I'm not going to tell you this whole story. Even if I could, I would not. You should search it out. There is, I say, renowned fool, the fool who stays true to the king. You see, these two gradually turned the king out. They don't. His plan was to just go back and forth and live it up at both houses, but they get tired of him, and they turn him out, and the king loses his mind. He wanders around without a hat, in the rain, in the storm, losing his mind. The fool stays with him, and another does as well, stays true to him. Well, by the end, Cordelia comes back from France to try to rescue her father when she finds out what's going on. But she falls under the control of these two. Her army loses. And she is reunited with her father, but he's lost his mind now. I just don't have time in this venue to explain all about it. But at the very end, she almost is saved. But a letter is sent directing the hangman to hang her. And Lear kills the hangman. Now by the end, she's dead, she's dead, she's dead, King Lear's dead, he's dead. Her one of the two husbands is dead. Their father is dead. The fool survives, apparently. King Lear dies of a broken heart. And right at the end, he comes onto stage carrying his daughter. When I cast this, when the time the Shakespearean troupe did it, the man who played King Lear, the Latin teacher at the school, he did a fabulous job. I'll have more to say about him later. He's not a big man. And I needed to make sure Cordelia was not a real big girl, because he had to carry her in and lay her down. And it's so heartrending, because he tries to convince himself that she's still alive. At one point he says, she's dead. She said something. She always had a soft voice, a good thing in a woman. It's like a little joke built into the heart-wrenching last scene. As a matter of fact, this is so tragic that for a couple hundred years, or 100 years anyway, when it was performed, the ending was changed. And Cordelia survived because the audiences felt that it was just too tragic. This is touched upon in a movie called The Madness of King George, which later on I hope I remember, and I hope I have time to tell you about that, because it so effectively uses King Lear at one point. Probably I'll tell you about that. Well, it's a great play. George Bernard Shaw's quote about it, I just read it in Wikipedia, says, "No man will ever write a better play." It's truly great. And if you're going to see a version of it, you want to see the one that Sir Laurence Olivier stars in. I think it's 1983. That is the one I recommend. It's been done other times and done well. But there's the one I recommend. All right, see you tomorrow.